Hello, people of 431. Boy, what a wild and crazy ride this semester has been. I mean, people often say things like, what a year this month has been, or what a month this week has been. I told the other classes this. I just hit a wall this past week. I was doing a whole bunch of stuff for the last couple of weeks, and I just hit it. I'm not struggling. My family's not struggling. We've been tucked into our house for a year, and we go out and buy groceries and come back. And, every once in a while we see some people in our backyard. And I think that's good for our mental health. But, I just reached a point mid-April where I said, I just can't do any work. It's not like I didn't have the power or even the energy to do the work. I just felt so tired, so without motivation. If you all are feeling without motivation at this point, then there's no blame you're going to get from me and no judgment you're going to get from me. We are all in the midst of trying to figure out how to get through this difficult, taxing, perhaps traumatic semester and to come out of it the other side. So I'll be brief. This week in 431, we transition. We're going from one kind of thing to another kind of thing, and I'm going to give it some time. There are some of you who are probably going to want to revise your first paper or your second paper. There is time for that over the next 4 weeks. There are people who maybe feel like they've fallen a little bit behind. There is time to catch up during this next 4 weeks. But what I'm hoping that we can really do during this time is we can begin a different kind of investigation. In a class like this, where everything was asynchronous and me just talking to you in a video and never really seeing you in a classroom, maybe seeing a couple of you on Zoom, there's a lot of things that I had to cut out. I started with a very big and rich syllabus where we read all the time and talked all the time and did all the time, did things in the classroom. And I was told to pivot to this kind of online asynchronous. I decided to make this, try to make it as easy as possible for you all to survive this semester. And you all have done fantastically. You've taken up internships in different spaces, and you are regularly attending, taking notes on what you see and trying to make sense of what's going on as a writing group, which is odd because we've never had writing groups like this before. I mean, sometimes it's good to take a step back and just to say how crazy this whole thing is. That we just made this stuff up out of whole cloth. We're just starting to do it. Last semester and this semester, we invented online writing groups. They had never been invented before. There were never things like this in the past, and there was never a reason for things like this to exist. And yet we persisted. You all persisted. Your mentors persisted. The teachers are persisting. We are persisting. We're going to get through this all together. But what that meant in terms of the syllabus was that I cut out a lot of stuff. We had time to talk about some things, but not everything. And in a class like this, where we are talking about so many deep and interesting issues related to how curriculum is structured, how education is delivered, how people learn to write, what kinds of things stand in the way of learning to write, how people learn in general, and how their learning about subject matter feeds into and supports or doesn't the kinds of written genres they're also trying to build. What this all means is there's a huge number of questions about tutoring, about mentoring, about second language acquisition, about multilingualism, plurilingualism, about genres, about transfer, about all kinds of things that we could not cover. So what does this mean? I am hoping we can take the next 4 weeks and you all can tell me, here's what I know now. Now, this is a combination of a lot of things. It's you reflecting on the kinds of experiences that you've had so far when I asked you to be tutored, when I asked you to attend a writing group. It's you reflecting on the kinds of things that you picked up out of the readings that we did or the conversations that we had individually on Zoom. But really, what this is the beginning of is a kind of a very brief adventure in which you structure some learning about a thing that maybe I have missed or overlooked. Let me go to the sharing screen and we'll talk about this a little bit more in depth. So first things first, just in terms of nuts and bolts, let's do week 12 reflection and revision. This is where we begin reflecting and revising, reflecting on the semester and revising the 2 papers we've now written. As soon as possible, preferably by Monday, please email me the link to your revised group observation paper. It would really help me out if you would do that. And it would be helpful to me if you revised in the same Google Doc I commented on last time. I did take some time and go through each of your drafts, leave some comments in the draft, but then I also wrote up a little thing in Google Currents. Go check that out as a way of revising this paper. So like I said before, in a semester such as this one, there are plenty of issues in writing and learning to write that we didn't have time or perhaps the energy to talk about. Here is your chance to do some digging on your own. If the umbrella for this course is learning to tutor or to mentor, what we might call working with writers one-on-one, what are unresolved questions or tensions related to what you have experienced or read or thought about this semester that you might want to continue to learn about? What does that mean? What would you like to, here's your chance to do some digging on your own and expand what we know as a class. So what would you like to learn more about? This is that assignment. Your chance to tell me what you've learned in this class and a brief exploration of what more you'd like to know. So it's a 4-stage process, mostly, almost all in Google Currents, where what you do each week is post to Google Currents by Wednesday. Everyone, please reflect a bit on what this class has and has not taught you. Let's do this Wednesday about writing, learning, tutoring or mentoring, reading, and so on. In a limited semester like ours, in which all of our work was asynchronous, there are bound to be things we didn't cover. So what questions do you have at the end of this weird and difficult semester? Tell us what you want to learn more about. That would be that post. You'd look back at what you have done so far and maybe what you haven't done. And you'd think through, okay, so what holes in my knowledge are there? What are the kinds of things that I'd particularly, under the umbrella of this course, I'd particularly like to know more about? Week 13, I'm going to ask you to extend that by saying, go find some answers to your questions. We're going to do this week 13 and week 14. Everyone, please go find some more answers to your questions. Now, your assignment each week is to post what you are finding out, but then go and comment on at least one other person's findings. What did they find? How did you react to the kinds of things you're reading? Like I say right here, read at least one of the other posts and currents and respond in some substantive way to it. Since this is our reflective work, you could also respond to what made the poster want to research this particular thing, connections you're making to your writing group, or resonances with other things we've discussed this semester. Then finally, in week 15, you're going to start to put it all together. What does that mean? Some kind of document, or maybe a video, let's just say, where you flesh out, okay, so here's what I know now, both in what we have done in the class and what I went to research and learn about on my own. This again can be a Google Doc. The paper could take the form of a Google Doc, or it could take the form of an Adobe Spark. There could be other kinds of things you do to make a video like this one. And that will be totally cool. We'll talk about it when the time grows nigh. So what does that mean? You are on your own. And I hope that what we'll be doing is a lot of communicating and reading and responding in Google Currents, such that we walk away with an enriched sense of what we have learned this semester, and you with a better sense of tutoring, mentoring, and so on in a number of different spaces. In the process, I'll be gleaning ideas from you all about the kinds of things that I can do in the next semester in order to make this class better than it is. And that would be so helpful to me. So one final thing that I will point out, I do want to talk about one thing before we go, and that is that your applications for jobs either in the summer or in the fall will be due pretty soon. If you have any questions about that, email me or email Kim Jackson, who is the one who's organizing most of the application process. We generally need some kind of letter or statement of some kind about the kinds of jobs that you want to be considered for, either summer or fall or both. But then we also need certain kinds of things. We need an unofficial transcript. We might need a little bit of other information as well. We need to make sure that you're available for some of the trainings that Kim will hold in the final weeks of the semester. If you have questions about the kinds of things that are going to be going on in the summer and the fall, let me know, because these are writing groups, and you have now seen writing groups in action the entire semester. And I believe all of you are ready to put into practice the kinds of things that you've experienced and you've learned in this class as successful writing mentors and tutors. I'm also more than willing to write you a letter of recommendation for the Student Learning Center, Writing Center, if you'd like to work there. And there are other opportunities as well, perhaps in the ESL Support Services Center run by Sandra Wright. So in any case, keep your ear open and your eyes open, be scanning your email for these kinds of things, and we'll go from there. I wanted very quickly to return once again to the assignment sheet for this reflection, because there are additional notes that I think could be useful for you as you begin doing work here. As I'm scanning down, and the video is still running. I will take you to it right now. So if you have questions about this reflection paper thing, again, the purpose of this paper is an open-ended reflection on what you have learned in this course and what questions still remain, and a bit of inquiry narrative where you guide us through what you found between now and the end of the semester. But remember all the things that constitute the learning in this course. That is specific events or moments from your internship, the being tutored paper, this writing group paper that we just did, Zoom discussions that we've had, readings that might have seemed particularly memorable or engaging. And remember as well what the final product will be. It's a relatively informal paper in which you use I and you talk through this stuff and what you've learned in the meantime, so that I get a complex and interesting, engaging picture of you as a learner in this course. And so that I walk away feeling like, wow, I have been taught by this person. This is amazing. And I know I will have that feeling reading each of your drafts. For now, let's just talk about the in-between steps. That is, let's talk about how we can gather various forms of information about our questions, either in databases or in Google searches, in articles we've read for other classes, or articles, PDFs that we've found on our own, websites that seem interesting and useful, that have interesting kind of insights into education or learning or teaching, or other kinds of things, like actual talk with professors like me or other people. If you've just got a bone to pick or an itch to scratch, send an email to that person and see if they give you some resources you can use. Those are the in-between steps. Those are the process steps that are going to take us from the beginning of this process to the end. Okay, thank you so much, and I hope to talk to you soon.